updated map, contour map I've made of all the gas. In the MRA, how much of this gas is producible, and everything else is being debated right now. But fortunately, under the Blue Ribbon Commission, a lot of the data we need to make definitive engineering type calculations of the gas and gas recovery, that data is now coming in. So I don't have a good volume for you tonight. I can tell you, a year ago, I told you there were 45 million cubic feet of gas in the MRA. They vented about 26, and we probably had another 20 million cubic feet come out through the bubble sites and everything. So I'm here once again to tell you my number of 45 million cubic feet of gas was wrong, because we either had bubbling or venting of at least that much. So there's more out there than I told you a year ago. What Patrick talked about is there's some indication, and we're still working the data, that we may be getting gas recharge from depth. Don Marlin, last time we met, talked about a potential reservoir at about 1,500 feet. That may still be feeding in here. We've got a number of data points that indicate we may still be getting gas coming in, and I'll show you one of those here in a second. So anyway, this is what the gas footprint looks like. We've got the big gas volume over under the community extending south and probably extending down to the Trish Canal. That is the single biggest volume of gas out there right now. And then we've got another big area over southeast of the Texas Brine facility, trending over towards the Grand Bayou. So those are the two big areas where we've got a lot of gas accumulation. The bubble intensity is shown here. These are as of January. The green triangles are the bubble sites that essentially in the last 18 months haven't changed intensity. They go out, they videotape it. We've got one person assigned to review all the videotapes, and he assigns a number, a bubbling number as it were, and he evaluates whether it's increased, decreased, or staying the same. Most of the bubble sites have stayed the same. There was a question about the pressure in the MRA. The fact that the bubbling is still about the same overall is consistent with still having high pressure. We have had some bubble sites shown in the yellow squares that have obviously decreased. The ones over in Grand Bayou were the most obvious ones. And we've had a number of bubble sites you can't visit anymore because they've dried out, and those are shown in the beige diamonds. And then we've had one bubble site, not counting the one up on Grand Bayou, but one bubble site over on the Texas Brine property, very close to the Oxy 3 cavern well, that has markedly increased bubbling over the last 18 months. It started off as a bubble site about the size of this podium, and now it's many, many feet across. So that one's increased, and last time I talked to Farrell, it's still doing very well. And then we've got some purple sites, the purple with the dot in the middle, where the bubbling has in fact stopped. But taken in total, most of the bubble sites are still about where they were 18, 19, 20 months ago when you first saw them. This is the isotopic gas analysis. I'm updating you on this. We've got two kinds of gas out there, really: biogenic, which is swamp gas, and then thermogenic, which is the deep gas coming up from the Oxy 3 cavern collapse. The biogenic gas is shown in green squares, and there's still a few of those out there. There's a few mixed gas where it's about half and half, biogenic and thermogenic. And unfortunately, all of the yellow circles are thermogenic gas. And that's either vent wells, shallow geoprobes, or bubble sites coming to the surface of thermogenic gas. People have been talking about the Passive vent wells in the community, passive vent well 3, which is south on Sportsman's Drive. We did get an isotopic classification on that, and that is thermogenic gas. So the gas that was coming out of that is coming from below in the MRA, and as we've explained before, what happens is the gas accumulates in the MRA and then it works its way up through the aquitard. And we've seen a number of bubble sites and some of the geoprobes change from biogenic to thermogenic as this starts. So pressure monitor well 3, that everybody's talked about, is in fact thermogenic gas. So that gas is coming up through the aquitard along Sportsman's Drive. That well, I believe, was about 20 feet down, 20 feet deep. So this is the latest isotopic gas analysis. Click. One thing I want to point out, Deborah, if you'll, this is the one up at the pipeline crossing. It bubbled very vigorously and it's still bubbling now. I think John sent me a video yesterday. It's still bubbling. It is biogenic, so when they push the pipeline through, it obviously opened up the pathway to some biogenic gas. As Don alluded to, though, we're going to watch this. We've added it to the routine. If it continues bubbling over the next month, we'll sample it again and see if it stays biogenic or it starts to switch over to thermogenic. But right now, it's very strongly biogenic. But as everybody in this room knows, there's nothing that stays constant at Bayou Corn. So you have to keep monitoring this stuff. So that's what it looks like. That pattern is consistent with all the gas issues we've been talking about. I want to talk a little bit about gas venting so people are square. This is gas that's been vented out of the vent wells. It doesn't account for the bubble sites, which is probably about another 20 million cubic feet has come out. This is just vented. The total volume vented, about 21 million cubic feet, has come outside the community, and about 4.9 million cubic feet has now been vented inside the community. But that's because for a long time there were no vent wells in the community. ORW 36 on Dennis's property was the first one that was installed, and that one's doing great. But as you can see, the focus has shifted from outside the community to inside the community if you look at the daily vent rate. There's a lot of gas being vented out in the community. Unfortunately, as you saw on the map, there's still a fair amount of gas out there. So the focus now is in the community. We've got about 33,000 cubic feet a day being vented out of the community, and about 8,000 cubic feet per day vented outside the community. And that changes depending how they configure the wells, but this is as of last Friday. Next. In the community, and this is the picture I show, the blue line here is the area that I'm considering venting in the community. The ORWs in that area are all active. Most of them are, one shut in. You can see so far in the community, they've vented about 4.9 million cubic feet of gas. And the pressures are still staying relatively high, which means there's probably a ways to go. But that's the data as of 4 or 5 days ago. You can see 3 of the wells that Don talked about, ORW 36, which is up by Dennis's boat dock, ORW 50, which is along Sportsman's Drive, and ORW 55, which is the far south well right there. Those are venting most. We're still looking at completion and stuff to figure out why those are doing so good when some of the other ones with almost equal thickness of gas are not doing so good. Don't have an answer for you tonight. Okay?
Could it be the difference in some of those wells? And I don't know nothing about the installation of these wells, but I know 36 at the boat dock Didn't they use a different method and they perforated that pipe?
Yeah, that one, they drove in the casing, they went in with a PDK log, which is the log we used early on to identify gas, and then they bullet perfed it. The ORW 49 and on, 50, 52, 53, 56, 57, and 58 were all screened wells where they drove the casing down and then built a screened well. 2 of those are doing okay, 50's doing okay, and 58's doing okay. Or not 58, but 55. So,
So if we do another well somewhere, should we consider using the same method used at 36 and perforate rather than the other method?
that's part of what they need to do. And one thing, I'm going to talk about the ORW 21 testing here in just a second. But one thing the DNR is requiring of Texas Brine, once they get the ORW 21 pump test done, they have, I believe, 30 days to submit a comprehensive gas venting program for everything, including all the well construction and everything. Okay, so
that's being looked at.
it's being looked at, and I can tell you that that will be heavily scrutinized in light of all the data. I have people looking at this vent well data every day, and we're going through it and figuring out what's going on and why it's happening the